What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Another mock draft, doing one every single week until the start of the season. We're just going to start off like we always do with the news. So not a ton of news since last week. I think the most news we were going to get was right when free agency started. But a few players. So first, something we basically already knew. Came out that Irv Smith should have an expanded role this season. Again, we already knew this. We know that Diggs is gone, and as of right now, they haven't really brought on anyone to take all those targets. And we know Irv Smith was a rookie last season, a very good prospect, but we know rookie tight ends don't really do too much, especially for fantasy. So he had a good year from the standpoint of a rookie tight end, but I expect him to make a pretty nice bounce this season, play more snaps, get more targets. Just keep in mind that Rudolph is still there. It's not like he's gone, so he's not just the guy. But I definitely do like him late in drafts. Matt Breida is not a lock to make the final roster of the 49ers. This wasn't really a guy that you were drafting right now because you've got Coleman, you've got Mostert there. So it's just a situation you're not drafting him. But if he were to get cut, I'm pretty confident that a team will scoop him up. So maybe there's a chance I don't really know when they would cut him. Maybe sometime when camp would start. So maybe we're in like that July time frame. If he gets cut and he goes to a team that really needs a running back, that could be interesting. So keep an eye out on that. But again, we're not drafting him right now. Landry is recovering from his labrum surgery. Looks like it's going well so far. Still a bit of a ways away from making the recovery. But of course, he's got plenty of time to recover right now. They gave him a 6 to 8 month timetable in February when he had the surgery, and they are hoping he'll be back for week 1. But of course, we need to watch that situation. Trubisky and Foles are in open competition. Nagy came out and said that Trubisky will get the first snap, but that doesn't matter because they're going to split the snaps. They're going to have like the same players, so it's not only going to be a split with like the total snaps, the total reps, but it's going to be split between who they're playing with. So they're both going to play, with Allen Robinson, with all their starters. I don't really care too much about this. We're not drafting either of them for fantasy. And the only person I'm really targeting right now, at least on the Bears, is Allen Robinson. And I would not view, at this point, either of them as a bumper downgrade. I think they're both fairly mediocre. He should have a good season regardless of who's throwing him the ball. Watkins restructured his contract. You remember he was going to be like the biggest cap hit of any wide receiver or something crazy like that. But no longer. This is obviously a blow to Mecole Hardman because there was a chance that they couldn't re-sign him or couldn't keep him on the roster, I guess. And that Mecole became their number 2, which would have been really nice. But not going to happen. So he's going to be the same thing that he always has been. It's going to be a very risky pick, but one with massive upside that you honestly could definitely look at in these like mid rounds because that's when we're taking shots. That's when we're saying, I'll take on this risk if I can get a player who can just go off. He did disappear for a large portion of 2019. If you look at the playoffs, 2 for 76, 7 for 114, a touchdown, 5 for 98. We know that he has that sort of upside, especially in this offense. So that's the news. Not really too much, like I said. One thing I want to show you. So remember how I said we are definitely for the first majority of the season up through August, I want to be testing things out in these mock drafts. So the last 2 times we've tested out quarterback early versus quarterback late, and then tight end early versus tight end late. And I post a poll on Twitter. I ask you guys, which would you like? Because I kind of go over who I would have taken at these different spots. Because remember, I'm not forcing anything. But like in 2 times or last time? Yeah, last mock draft, I took Lamar. And I said, we're going to test this out. I would have taken DJ Moore at this spot. So whenever that pops up, I'm going to be writing it down in this Excel sheet. I'm going to be asking you guys who you would prefer so we can kind of map out what we like. You guys actually said you liked the quarterback early pairing of Lamar Jackson and Deontay Johnson more than what I would have done if I'd taken DJ Moore and then taken Stafford late. So that's interesting. Usually we are team wait on the quarterback. But we'll see if that kind of shakes out. Maybe in this draft, I take a quarterback in the middle rounds and we compare that to a quarterback late. Maybe I do a tight end in the middle round, compare it to late. But it could work both ways. So let's say I just don't want to take the tight end in the middle round. Well, we can still compare it with what I could have done. So I can still take a tight end late and then be like, hey, if I had waited, or not waited, I guess, and in like the 6th round taking a tight end, how would my team have looked? So I want to do that in every mock draft. These are the results right now. Remember, 2 times ago, the answer, what I ended up doing was Kelsey and Boston Scott. But what I would have preferred, and what you guys prefer as well, would have been Gesicki and Josh Jacobs. So taking that running back in that 2nd round instead of going for Kelsey. And I do believe that's the correct answer. I think this other one's really close, but I'm not going to lie to you. Even though I'm usually team win on quarterback, I feel like Lamar and Deontay is better. Just my opinion. Had some time to think about it, and I do think it's slightly better. So I really do agree with your percentages so far. Follow me on Twitter. Take part in those polls, and we'll just kind of track this throughout the season. Obviously, we're going to do more than what's on the screen here, but I don't know, I just wrote out a few just to see. So we have done all of the odd numbers. I didn't even notice that going into the last one. So we'll work on the even numbers now. We're going to do from the 10 spot. I did an early one last time, so a little bit later now. Same roster that we always do. The 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex spot. Yeah, 1 flex spot, 1 quarterback league. Your standard setup with half PPR scoring. So, draft log. What happened so far? McCaffrey, Barkley, Zeke, Michael Thomas, Derrick Henry goes as the, what would that be, the 5th running back off the board? 4th running back off the board. Then Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Hopkins, and Nick Chubb. Okay, so we know our general strategy, running backs early. I don't love this pick because I feel like we just hit that tier. I believe, don't quote me on this, but the rankings on the site right now have McCaffrey, Barkley, Zeke, Dalvin, Kamara, maybe Derrick Henry, probably Derrick Henry too, as like a tier 1. Maybe Nick Chubb sneaks in there too. But that's kind of like that first tier. And then we get into this like Jones, Mixon, Josh Jacobs, Fournette, Eckler, Drake, that kind of tier right there where they're very, very similar. So I don't love that I would have to pick like first out of that tier. But we could go wide receiver. So our option at wide receiver is basically Devonta Adams. I don't really see a case for anyone else ahead of him. I've seen people argue Chris Godwin. I would still prefer Adams. Just there is still risk. I know Brady is an obvious upgrade from a talent standpoint from Winston, but we don't know if they're going to be more conservative. We don't know what the connection is going to be like because we've seen decent receivers. I don't want to say they've had decent receivers, but we've seen receivers, I guess, that we thought would be a really nice fit in New England, just not perform as well as some lesser talented wide receivers just because of the chemistry. Brady really wants you to be in the exact spot that he wants you to be. So even though Chris Godwin is a fantastic wide receiver, he's exceptional, and he's probably going to have a monster season, there is that risk that maybe he doesn't run the route exactly like Brady wants, and he doesn't throw to him as much. Probably not going to happen. Little low likelihood, but we know what Devonta Adams is, so I would still have him ahead of these guys. So my tendency, since I do say I don't really care which one of these guys we get stuck with, and we're guaranteed to get at least one of them, I do care. I don't want to say that. Like Mixon and Jacobs are the 2 guys I'd want. But I think one of them will be available. It's only 4 picks after us until we get our next one. I do think we just lock up Adams, and then we see which one of these guys we get. So, yes, we did get one of them. So after me, it was Eckler, Julio, Joe Mixon, Godwin. So we got a little bit lucky. I view Jacobs as just a really good pick in that like early to mid 2nd round this season. You guys know last season was pointing out just how lucky Aaron Jones was getting in the touchdown department. We cannot expect him to score as many touchdowns as he did. We cannot expect him to always be tackled at like the 2-yard line on that team, always be punching it in with him. So I'm not as big on Aaron Jones as some people are, but I really do think Jacobs and Kenyon Drake are like the clear options in this tier. So I'm going to take Jacobs. And I do like starting off this way. Like I said before, I do really like teams that have those 2 running backs because I like to have 4 running backs on the team that I really feel confident in, that are going to get work. They could get injured. They could just have a bad season, not be as good as we think. But I want to go into the season with 4 guys that I'm just like, they should be getting a lot of touches every week. And by a lot of touches, I mean these guys are getting more than 15 or roughly like 15 to 20 touches every week. Obviously, I prefer them to be involved in the receiving game, but I do think Jacobs will take a bump this season in receiving. I don't have any like hard data to back that up, but I do think he's going to get more receiving work this year. He's going to get all the goal line. I don't know. I just think it's a really good pick, really safe pick. I don't really want to go over too much of what happened, but we'll scroll through. So we see Kelsey go late second round. We see Kittle go late second round. So Lamar and Mahomes both go in the third, like the mid-third round, which is interesting. Usually I believe they go in the second round. And then nothing really too crazy, although David Johnson goes in the third round. So actually, I want to bring that up. So a common theme in last week's mock draft, I don't remember why, maybe I talked about him at some point, was that David Johnson is a really good RB2 because of all the work he's going to get. So I do agree with everyone that says, as of right now, it's pretty obvious that David Johnson is going to get goal line. He's going to get the majority of the carries, and he's going to get some receiving work. My problem with him is that he hasn't been good in a few years. He had like a few games early last season that were good, but if you're watching those games, you know that he kind of lucked into some of those fantasy points. I think he caught that touchdown in week 1 really late when like he was not having a good game leading up to that. We've seen these injuries. I'm not going to call him injury prone because he's not injury prone. But my issue with him is that he's moving from what we thought last year was a fantastic situation. It is a fantastic situation to a team that has not been throwing to their running backs all that much. And we haven't, like I said, seen him be that great recently. And so I also said, I think he was going a lot later in drafts. He's going to be going in this range. Like if they don't take anyone, he's going to be going in this third round. And there's no way in the world I'm spending a third round pick on David Johnson on this team because Watson hasn't been throwing to running backs. And that's been a lot of what David Johnson brings to the table. He doesn't bring like 120-yard rushing games to the table. Go look at his box scores. He gets a lot of his production off touchdowns and receptions. And the running backs don't get all that many touchdowns in Houston. So I have my concerns with him. I also think it's possible they draft a running back. I think it's possible that, like I talked about Breda, like they could sign Breda if he gets cut from the 49ers. So I think there are a lot of scenarios where there's no way I'm spending a third round pick with all that unknown on David Johnson. So that's my take. Like you're not going to see me take him over DJ Moore and Odell. Like come on, there's no way I would do that. I'd even take these quarterbacks ahead of him. So my quick take on that. So who could we take at the running back position? You guys know I love Marlon Mack. I still don't understand his ADP, but like there's so many guys here. I mean, Carson is just a really, really nice pick. I'm avoiding Melvin Gordon. I know some people are high on him. I am not. Mark Ingram is like a sort of safe pick here, although he's kind of like Aaron Jones. He got super lucky with touchdowns last season, and it was basically exactly what I said was going to happen. Like we looked at the year and we said, all right, Mark Ingram is going to go off if he scores touchdowns, but when he's not scoring touchdowns, not going to do all that much because he's not going to be that involved in the receiving game. He's not going to get that many carries each game unless they're dominating. So he's going to have a lot of games where he scores like 5 or 6 points if he's not scoring a touchdown. And since he was so lucky with touchdown, I think people are going to overdraft him this season. So I don't want to be part of that. But Carson definitely, especially with Penny. I mean, likely Penny's going to open on the pup. So for the first like 6 weeks of the season, you're going to have just Carson unless they draft someone. So Carson, I really like Devin Singletary, really like Marlon Mack. That's kind of the players I'd be looking at. So that's one option. We take Carson, then we take whoever's left of Singletary and Mack. Another option would be taking a wide receiver, but so many of these guys are the same. I don't really want to take a wide receiver with this pick. There's no way I start reaching on tight end at this point. Again, we could test out mid-round tight end, but that would be more like 5th and 6th round. And then quarterback, the elite guys are off the board, and I don't think we should reach a quarterback. So basically our option is take Carson like we do in every single mock draft, I feel like. And now we do have the option of any of these running backs. So I do not know who I have ranked higher out of these guys, but if I had to guess, I would say I'm like 70% sure I have Mack ahead of everyone. And since there's no chance that any of these guys are available at our next pick, we don't even worry about ADP. We just take the one we want more. For me, that is Marlon Mack. This was a beautiful change for him. We know that he's dependent on winning. And say what you want about Phillip Rivers. They're a better team with him at quarterback, so they should win more games. But also, Rivers loves to dump it. He loves to throw to these running backs. So while Naheem Hines gets a bump, he's not the type of player we target outside of deeper PPR leagues. But Marlon Mack can catch. He has that ability. And so if you're going to give me these games where he's going to have 25 carries, Marlon Mack's a guy who can get you 25 carries in the game. If you're adding on like 7 targets a week, I mean, maybe that's excessive, but you're adding on a lot of dump-offs from Rivers, plus he's still going to be getting his carries. I mean, crazy upside. I still don't get his ADP. He should be going in like the early 3rd round, and I got him in the early 4th round. So I think he's going about a round too late, in my opinion. So let's look at the roster. We've got Josh Jacobs, Chris Carson, Marlon Mack. I feel very confident in the amount of carries and the amount of targets with the carries, I guess you would say. Just these guys getting at least like 15 touches a week. Feel really good about that. And I don't think you could possibly feel bad about Devonta Adams at your wide receiver spot. So this is where we're going to look to maybe make the change. So I start off a lot like this. This is how I start a lot of my teams off at. Let's look at tight end. Got Darren Waller. Okay. Hunter Henry, I do not believe I would be taking this year. Just like Rivers loves his tight ends. Rivers loves dumping. You're going to Tyrod Taylor likely. I mean, maybe they draft someone, but they're not going to be drafting like the first 2 quarterbacks, so it's not going to be someone who's going to step in right away and be amazing. I just think there's a lot of risk with Henry, so I wouldn't spend a very high pick on him. Ingram, I love him, but the injuries are very concerning with him. I don't know that he can stay healthy. Austin Hooper, changing teams, new quarterback. So we're kind of looking at like Waller, Jared Cook, Higbee, Fant, Goddard, Hawkinson, Gesicki. So we can consider Waller. That's basically the only person you'd consider at this spot. So that's one option. We go with Waller. Second option is we try and snag 2 of these wide receivers. Worth noting, we have Adams, so we don't need that great of a wide receiver too. I'm very confident in Chark and McLaurin, but I'd honestly say I'm more confident in McLaurin. Love Deebo Samuel. Probably a little bit of a reach, though, at this point. At running back, I do not believe we can take Connor. There's plenty of reports that suggest they're going to be taking a running back. David Montgomery, Kareem Hunt wouldn't be a bad option. No way we take Lindsey. Geis isn't terrible, but not at this point in the draft. So maybe we take the tight end. Definitely not quarterback right here. But if we're not pumped about all of these options, and especially not pumped at running back, I think I could lock one more up, but I don't think it's necessary here. Let's test out Waller. So this will be our test. A mid-round tight end. We have to remember, I mean, I can look back, but 5th round. So at that point, it's very likely that I was going to take one of Chark or McLaurin. Since Chark got drafted, let's just assume I would have taken Chark with that pick. I don't know what would have ended up happening. Maybe I would have actually taken Kareem Hunt. Let's actually do that. Let's say I would have taken Kareem Hunt. I don't know hopefully you guys can't hear that in the background. But let's say I would have taken Kareem Hunt, and then we'll look at maybe like a 10th, like what tight end I would have taken in the 10th round to pair with Kareem Hunt. But I'm not going to take Hunt here. I'm going to take McLaurin. I think that he is a little bit ahead of all of these players. Just the clear-cut wide receiver 1 on Washington, and it's not like the quarterback play could get any worse than it was last season. Like you could argue like, oh, the quarterback play is not good. Yeah, look what he was dealing with last year. He's a fantastic young wide receiver. I think he takes a step up this year. Feel really good about him at the wide receiver 2 spot. But I will say it's not like fantastic. Like there is a chance that he doesn't perform as well. So we do still need some like solid wide receiver talent behind him. Let's run through the team. So we've got Jacobs, Carson, Mack at running back. We've got Adams, McLaurin at wide receiver, and then Darren Waller at tight end. Looking at the quarterbacks, there's definitely been a drop-off here, but I think we can find some dudes late. So I'm not overly concerned, but this is definitely not the point to have seen all these quarterbacks go off the board and just snag one just to snag one. They'll still be there. So we're in the 7th round. David Montgomery is still on the board. That's interesting. I didn't think he would be available at this point because, I mean, the odds of them taking a running back, I really don't think they take a running back early because then what are they going to do? I mean, are they going to just not use David Montgomery because they're going to still use Cohen. So if they take a running back early, they're going to be splitting like 8 and 7 carries with David Montgomery, and that just wouldn't make any sense to them as a team. So I think he still takes over all the goal line, gets some receiving work. Obviously, the offense was bad, but it's not like the offense is going to get any worse. So not a bad pick there. Geis isn't a bad pick for the upside. I know he's had the injuries, but when he's been healthy, he's been dominant. But I think there's a huge drop-off after those guys. So let's just take David Montgomery because I don't really see another option, even just not looking at wide receiver. No wide receivers even went. So we have our option. We can take John Brown, Christian Kirk, probably not. Marquise Brown, Will Fuller. That's probably it. I feel like I talk about him in every video, but I am a fan of Will Fuller this year because he is the perfect pick to what we preach. Remember, I just said about Sammy Watkins earlier. Sammy Watkins is a guy that I advocate for, like that type of player in these middle and late rounds because, yeah, Sammy Watkins could pull his hamstring like he always seems to do or hurt his foot or something and just be out. But you don't have to start him in those weeks. And you know that when you do start him, he is a very talented wide receiver on a elite offense, probably like the best offense in football, with the best quarterback in football. So you're going to tell me he doesn't have crazy upside? He does. We've seen the downside with Sammy Watkins for sure, but Will Fuller is the same way. We see DeAndre Hopkins, that's what, 10 targets a week that just left? And where do you think those targets are going? Like, yeah, they should probably draft a wide receiver, but that wide receiver is not taking those targets. And then you argue, well, yeah, but Will Fuller's always hurt. Like I just said, you're not starting him in the weeks that he's hurt. So if you told me I'm going to get 10 weeks out of Will Fuller, I'm like, okay, I will absolutely take him in the 8th round every time because those weeks where he's healthy, I mean, I might even start him over McLaurin. I mean, he has so much upside each week that especially when you likely add in targets from what he's seen, that's the type of player you always take in these mid to late rounds. The 8th round is not that early. So that's my take on that. We don't really need any specific position right now because we've got Jacobs, Carson, Mack, Montgomery. That's 4 running backs. We've got 3 wide receivers, Adams, McLaurin, and Fuller. We're definitely weaker at wide receiver, but that's how I construct my teams usually. And Darren Waller at tight end. We will not be drafting another tight end. We have 4 bench spots, 1 quarterback, and then defense in the last round. Let's look at wide receiver since I have it up. I am not a huge fan this year of Anderson, not a huge fan of Jeffrey, Miller, Slayton I would be fine with, but it feels a little bit early for him right now. Not huge on Cooks. It's not a bad pick, Cooks, but I'm not huge on him. Not big on Samuel. Basically, Deontay Johnson, John Ross, and then like all these like later guys. So really don't think we need to take a wide receiver here, even though that's the position we're lacking. I also had brought up some of the rookies, I haven't been looking at the draft log, so I don't really know who got taken. I don't also know where they are on here, just because they haven't been ranked by some people. Maybe they've all already gone. I don't really know where they are in the rankings. But I want to reserve my take on rookies for when they get drafted because, some of these guys like CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Rager, they're going to be good. They're going to be fantasy relevant, but so much of their value depends on where they get drafted that I don't want to give a take on a guy in a certain round when I know it's going to be wrong. It is just going to be wrong because it all depends on where they go in the draft, what team takes them. So I don't want to give my takes on those guys. I don't really want to include them in these drafts. But this could be a point where you'd be taking one of them. Although scrolling through, maybe they've already been taken. I wasn't paying too much attention to which ones went. But at running back, we've got our typical Murray pick. The guy where you take someone else's handcuff, you just not hope that Kamara gets hurt, but basically he's there as a running back one if that were to happen. Jamal Williams, not horrible pick, but there's reports that they want 3 running backs they can use. Not big on Duke Johnson. Tony Pollard would be the pick, but honestly, none of these guys are jumping out to me at running back or wide receiver. And since we already have a tight end, I guess it's time to take our quarterback. Of these guys, it's pretty clearly between Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan. I would argue that I don't love forcing a stack. So some people take Aaron Rodgers because you have Adams. To me, that makes no difference. If anything, it just adds weekly risk. So you're going to be very happy when Rodgers goes off to Adams. But when they face a difficult team, you're going to have some down weeks. When Rodgers only has 201 touchdown and it wasn't to Adams, you're taking a hit at multiple positions, and that's a lot more difficult to come back from. So when in doubt, I actually tend to lean not pairing the two unless you're in a best ball league or you're playing DFS or something. So I'm going to take Matt Ryan. I don't really know what I have the ranking at, but it's definitely not bad to take Matt Ryan. It's a pass-heavy offense. He's a very good quarterback. He's got fantastic weapons around him. So I'm pretty confident in that pick. So now we're not taking a running back, or we're not taking a tight end or a quarterback the rest of the way through, which is not normal for us. Usually we end with quarterback defense, but now last 4 picks for skill position is going to be running backs and wide receivers. So let's look at tight end just for our comparison. So still most of these guys on the board. So we could have taken Jared Cook. So maybe we do this as the comparison. Who did I even say? I honestly don't even remember. Oh, it was Kareem Hunt. It was Kareem Hunt. So here's going to be today's. Kareem Hunt and Jared Cook, or Darren Waller and whoever the running back is here. I guess it would be Latavius Murray. So there's your option. You can put it in the comment section. Not that those really count towards anything, but I guess you guys can have a discussion down there. But go to Twitter and do the poll. I'll post it, sometime the day this goes up. It should be on Tuesday. Would you rather have Latavius Murray and Darren Waller, or Kareem Hunt and Jared Cook? I have the answer. In my eyes, I will tell you in the next mock draft. I don't want to influence the vote too much. But that's what it would come down to. So we will take Latavius here because, again, we're filling our bench with players who have upside because we do not need any of them to start for us right away. Next pick, we kind of need a wide receiver at this point. We have Adams, McLaurin, and Fuller. Let's try and find... Deontay is just our guy. We're going to take him in almost every mock draft, I feel like. So we get Deontay. I really, really like the talent in Preston Williams. My issue is we don't even have a single report, at least to my knowledge, of how he's recovering from his injury. And his injury was not late in the season, but it was late enough in the season to where I have some concerns about his ability to return right for week 1. Certainly could. I'm not saying he can't. I'm saying maybe it's a little bit slower for a return for him. So that's why I would shy away from that. But Sammy Watkins at this late, I mean, tell me a guy who has more upside than Sammy Watkins here. Maybe John Ross, maybe, but there's still risk with John Ross. So yeah, I don't even see a case for anyone else. So like those 2 picks. And I understand that my bench is extremely risky, but I guess what are the odds that Fuller and Watkins and Deontay Johnson all bust? Could certainly happen, but then, I mean, we have McLaurin and Adams, so we're good there. But I don't know. I don't feel like all of them are going to bust. Probably take a running back at this point. So we've got Jacobs, Carson, Mack, Montgomery, and Latavius Murray. I'd like to take someone with some sort of upside here. Gosh, I don't even... Literally no one on the screen right now has that much upside. Dion, I guess Dion could be good if Barkley went down. Yeah, these are all really gross. Maybe there's a running back that is misranked right now in here. That's a rookie, but I mean, scrolling through quickly, I don't know Vaughn, but I don't know where he's going. Yeah, I don't want to take one of them. Wow, that's pretty terrible. Your options are literally like Dion Lewis. Your options are Dion Lewis, Justice Hill, Gus Edwards, and Breida if you just assume that he gets cut and signs with another team. So maybe we don't even take a running back and we just load up on wide receiver, and you would use one of these wide receivers as trade bait. So maybe Sammy goes off in week 1. Maybe Sammy and Fuller go off in week 1, and you can flip them for like a running back 1, and then you would have just 4 rock solid running backs, and you'd still have like okay wide receivers, I guess. But I mean, I don't even see a case for taking any of these guys right now. So we'll just take another wide receiver. I would say John Ross is probably your best bet. No one else here. No. I don't see anyone else there. So we'd probably take John Ross, and then we'll go ahead and take whichever defense they tell us to take. Sure, we'll take the New England Patriots. So I'll run through the team one more time. Remember, don't care about the grade. Is that the exact score we got last time? So here is the squad. Starting lineup. Matt Ryan, Josh Jacobs, Chris Carson, Devonta Adams, Terry McLaurin, Darren Waller, Marlon Mack, and the Patriots, with a bench of David Montgomery, Will Fuller, Latavius Murray, Deontay Johnson, Sammy Watkins, and John Ross. So remember to go to the Twitter. It should be on the screen somewhere. I don't really know where I put it. Take the poll, which of the pairings you prefer. That's the end of this one. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? How about subscribing to the channel if you're new? Thanks for watching.